can you tell me how you've dared and won?
Leaving a very secure, very well-paid job I enjoyed to set up my own coaching and consultancy business. I absolutely loved the job, but knew that the future that I wanted and how I wanted to live, if I stayed doing what I was doing, I was not going to get what I wanted in the future. It's not easy. It is not easy.
No.
You know, and people might think, oh, I want to start up my own business and I'll have better work-life balance. You won't, because you'll be working more hours
Never
on your own
stops.
business
Yeah.
than you did in your 9 to 5. And you'll probably, and at the start, you'll be getting less money. You'll get over one shitstorm and there'll be another one, you know. But it's your shitstorm, you know. It's your thing to manage, to sort out. If you've got the dream to do something, you owe it to yourself, I say, to get in the arena and do it. I was working as a buyer for companies like Primark, Marks and Spencer's. I help people that want to start product businesses or want to have a product business and want to grow it.
Hello and welcome back to the She Dares Wins podcast. My guest today is Nicole. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Ah, you're welcome. All right, first question. She Dares Wins. Can you tell me how you've dared and won?
Leaving a very secure, very well-paid job I enjoyed to set up my own coaching and consultancy business.
Okay.
I absolutely loved the job, but knew that the future that I wanted and how I wanted to live, if I stayed doing what I was doing, I was not going to get what I wanted in the future. So just making that decision to then go, right, okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
How do I need to do it to get where I want to be?
And it's a huge leap. Tell me what the comfortable job was.
So I was working, it was a hard job. I was working as a buyer for retail. So traveling the world, sourcing product, you know, budgets of millions, you know, creating and sourcing product for companies like Primark, Marks and Spencer's, ASDA. I was head of buying at ASDA for footwear and accessories. And before that, I worked at Primark on beauty and homewares. So had a really long career doing that, like 18, 20 years doing that kind of work. And like I said, you know, really well paid, enjoyable job. So it wasn't as if I was going, it was a grind of a 9 to 5 and feeling like, oh, actually, I don't want to get out of bed and do this. I actually really enjoyed the job. But I would see the other women, it's very much a female-led, a female-dominated business. And I was like, right, do I want to get to director level? No. Do I want to get to head of buying level? Yes. But then I was like, what do I want to do after that? You know, but like I said, you travel the world, earn really good money, great perks for bonuses. But I went and saw someone and did, I don't know if you've ever done that exercise, what do you want to be, do and have?
Yes.
And I was like, right, what do I want to be, do and have over the next 6 months? What do I want to be, do and have over the next kind of 12 to 18 months? What do I want to be, do and have over the next 3 to 5 years? And it was a 3 to 5 years thing. It was like, right, okay, if I continue just on this kind of temporary be, do and have, or short-term be, do and have, that longer term is not going to happen. So I needed to make changes in the immediate to midterm to make sure the longer term changes could happen.
That meeting where you kind of wrote that out, was that the tipping point or was there something else?
No, it took a long time after that because it's a slow process. I suppose I did make a leap, but it was a considered leap, you know, and it was a staggered leap. It was a step rather than a jump.
Yeah, because I think this is a misconception among a lot of women, and it was for myself as well, in that there has to be this huge sack your job off, the next day you start a new dream. And actually, when you look into a lot of people's stories, that's not the case. There is this step away or step down and across and trying to make it work. And sometimes it does work with a full-time job that you can go part-time. Sometimes it doesn't. But very rarely is this, you know, today you're employed, tomorrow you start a new dream with all this work. So how was that for you?
So I had been thinking about it and looking at different ways I could work. So what I do essentially now is I help people that want to start product businesses or want to have a product business and want to grow it. So whether that's in beauty, homewares, clothing, and they might have an idea and they want to grow it, or they're already trading and they want to scale it, or they're trading really successfully and they want to sell it, you know. And so it's at all those different stages that I work with founders, and mainly female founders. And so I knew that there was a gap in that market after doing some research. But I knew that I was like, right, I've got mortgage commitments. I've got 2 young kids. They're now 9 and 11. And like, I'm not going to just go, right, okay, see ya, my well-paid job and all the perks and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I did leave a company that I was with, but then started with, I don't know how to say this part actually. We can edit this without. Wasn't made redundant. We had a bit of a
Disagreement?
Yeah. I was working with the company. We had a bit of a disagreement. So I had some money from that company then that stood me for a couple of months. But I knew that I still wanted to continue working. So I was doing some contract buying work and working 4 days a week for them while I was setting up the buyer and retail coach.
Okay.
And so I stayed doing that then, working 4 days a week for a business while still then on the side working with clients. Building the business. And then I started working for ASDA and I was head of buying with them, but they knew that I was doing the other stuff, the consultancy stuff on the side. So it was all fine. Everything was above board. Everyone knew what everyone was doing. And then it came to a point where I was like, right, okay, do I want to stay doing this on the side, or do I want to put as much focus as I'm putting in my 9 to 5 essentially into my own business? And at that stage I'd probably been doing it for a year and a half.
Okay.
And I said, right, okay, no, I'm going to now go full time in my own business, and we can see how it goes. I can always get contract work. I can always work on different projects if I feel I need to, but I don't want to take on long-term contracts or work as a buyer or head of buying. I want to focus on my own business and the coaching consultancy.
Which is a real sweet spot. But I'm also fascinated because I have something very similar going on with construction marketing and then this podcast. And I don't know, I'm intrigued to know whether having a backup plan is a good thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes when people make the jump and there's no other way of doing something, it's all or nothing. And the more women I speak to, and I think it might be a difference between guys and girls, they have this steady work into it, which I think is amazing. But then there is always, so for me, my backup is, and I always say it, I'm like, I could jump on a construction site tomorrow and earn back what I was earning then. I don't want to do that. I would absolutely hate to do that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's fascinating. Do you think you find a lot of women that you coach have the same thing? Or do you ever come across anyone that's like balls to the wall, just set fire to what they were doing?
A lot of people that I work with they often have been thinking about building or starting their own business. You know, those people that are at that beginning stage. They've been thinking about it for a while, and a lot of them then take the leap when they're on maternity leave, and they research it, or they start it when they're on maternity leave as a side hustle, then go
That's
back
exactly
to
what
work.
I did.
And it's really common. You know,
it's really common.
Yeah, they've been thinking about it for a while, then they either start to research it or actually start it when they're on maternity leave.
Right.
And then they go back to work, often part-time or potentially full-time, but then they're still then doing their side hustle.
Yeah.
And waiting then for that to grow a little bit then before they leave the permanent job.
Okay.
That's where I see, in terms of on that starting side, that's a lot of the people that I come across.
And that's fascinating as well, isn't it? Because I believe that when you become a mom, I don't know whether it's having the time off or the fact that, for me, I think it was realising how precious time is.
Yeah.
Is you stop, you're not on that hamster wheel and you actually think, what am I doing? And there's a bit of a life-changing moment, isn't there?
I think a lot of people felt the same, you know, through COVID and the pandemic, because they were able to live their life differently. They weren't doing the commute. And I think with now people being able to work in a hybrid way and they're not traveling as much, they've got a bit more time to maybe explore different things when they would have been on the tube or when they would have been, you know, driving an hour to work in a car there and back or whatever it may be. But so I think that's the people that a lot of the women that I see from the starting point of view, that's where they're at. Or they've potentially had another business in a completely different field and they want to do it. Or the other side, the other kind of people, 3 types of people that I often work with in terms of a pattern. They're on maternity leave, want to start their business. They're in a corporate job that they really don't like and it's driving them crazy, and they're well paid, so they have savings and they might start it that way. Still probably generally start it on the side rather than leaving and starting.
Yeah.
So they do, a lot of the people that I work with that are on that starting stage still have that safety net.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and do it in a more staggered way.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with
No.
that. I think that's probably quite financially sensible.
Yeah, and I know that I remember reading or hearing that Ben Francis from Gymshark, and I know it was Pizza Hut, but he was working for Pizza Hut, and when he was turning over 250 grand for Gymshark, and he was still working for Pizza Hut, delivering pizzas or whatever it was that he was doing at that time, so that was his spend money, and then he was doing what he needed to do with Gymshark.
Yeah, and didn't pay himself because we went to the same school. He went to one school in the same village, and I went to the other school. And his story is incredible because I think he didn't even pay himself for the first 3 or 4 years, just reinvested.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, is it? Because I think getting out of the mindset of earning a certain amount of money every month is an adjustment for people as well, in that you're building something for the long term rather than, just taking a paycheck.
Yeah.
So your journey then of making that jump, were there any bumps in the road, or was it quite a swift transition?
I mean, there's been times when at the beginning I've been like, right, okay, have I done the right thing? And because I really enjoyed my job and what I was doing, there wasn't necessarily bumps in the road. And I think it's just really important to keep showing up, because you don't know who is watching. There wasn't necessarily bumps in the road. Yes, you doubt, have you made the right decision? But, I think being confident, still showing up, still putting yourself out there, and, looking for the opportunities and showing up so that you stay visible and you're in people's minds. So that then you're the person that they want to work with, or you're the person that they want to get advice from, or you're the person that they want doing a talk for them at a trade fair, or you're the person, like I've had Channel 4 and BBC4. I've had Channel 4 and BBC approach me to be their retail expert for different programs and stuff like that. So I don't think there weren't bumps in the road. There was definitely times I've been like, all right, have I done the wrong thing? But they weren't like catastrophic moments.
Yeah. Because your experience is
I've been doing it for kind of 18, 20 years. And also I think, I have done ad hoc corporate projects. So it's not like I've stayed away from the corporate world. I've still gone in and I've trained buyers in big companies. I've done work for a smaller brand, a long-term project to help them with wholesale. So there are things I've gone and done. So it's not been, I think it's looking at what are your income streams, and just looking at what you want to do and what you want to earn, and then be like, right, okay, well, how am I going to do that? And then going after those opportunities. It's not going to come to you. You have to knock on the doors. You have to get out there, be seen, show people what you can do, get your reviews and testimonials, get people to trust you, and, be there so that you can be seen,
What's the best passion project that you've worked on? When you say you help people in lots of different areas, from fashion to homeware and beauty products, what lights you up?
I do love product. I love sourcing. I love helping them be better from a business point of view. Because a lot of founders, and I find this, like I said, I work with a lot of females, they often know what they need to do, but it's that confidence and the step to do it. So when I see them, so for me, it's, okay, we can find great product. We can find a great product with a great margin, and we get the best supplier for that. But seeing their sales increase, seeing them show up. I worked with a client last year, and she's a great business, and based in Scotland. And she was just like, I don't know which direction I need to go in. I feel a bit overwhelmed, and she wasn't showing up. There was so much she wanted to do with the business, but she felt overwhelmed and didn't know which step to take.
You don't know where to go. Yeah.
When you've got 20 things on your plate, what do you tackle first? And we approached it. We set out a 12-month plan. We looked at the turnover. We looked at sales targets, and the things that she needed to do to put herself out there, and just really seeing her growth and her grow, and the success then that came to the business. Those kind of things light me up, is just seeing that's really good. So even when I'm, not working with them anymore, that, because they've got to where they need to be, or we've done what we on paper what we need to do.
Yeah.
Seeing them still showing up, still growing, getting involved in different things. They're the things that I find like really interesting.
And do you predominantly only work with women?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not intentionally. And I don't... Yeah, it isn't... I say it's not intentional, but I just talk to women. Do you know what I mean? I generally, in terms of, I know they're... I don't... It's not intentional. Like, so if a man came and wanted to work with me, you know, if we gelled, I would work with them. I always do a discovery call to make sure that we're the right fit and I'm the right person that's going to be able to help them get where they need to be. And they're the right person that I want to work with as well. So, and if you're a female and that doesn't feel right, or if I'm not the right person for you or you're not the right person for me, then we won't work together, you know, so the gender in that doesn't matter. But generally, in terms of the people that approach me, it's women. I would say I've been doing this now since like 2020, and probably say I've had 3 discovery calls with men.
Interesting.
And then not actually ended up working with them. Because a lot of men are like, I want this and I want this, you know, and this is what I need to get. And you're like, okay, hang on.
The opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And you're just like, okay, just hang on a second, you know? So it's just the way that it's been, I think, because of, you know, who I speak, how I am. Maybe I just attract more women to work with me.
I think it's great. And what fascinates me is when I started the She Who Dares Wins clothing line, and I looked into brands that I thought were female owned, and there's nothing wrong with this. A lot of them were like either partners, so husbands that started the business with them. And I struggled to find there's lots of brands out there that are just run by women, but big brands. And it made me think, not the word here is not, are we capable? That's not right. Yeah. But does there need to be a difference in not necessarily gender, but personality to run a successful business? Because, I mean, my father was in business and him and his business partner were very different. Yeah. And he's like, there's always a push one way and a pull another. And as a single owner of a company, I often think, does that hold you back?
I think being a single owner of a company, I don't think that holds you back. I think then you need to be aware of what your weaker points are, or where you need that support and what kind of support you need, and then hire for that. You know, whether that's freelance, whether it's contract, whether it's a permanent position. You know, and often, you know, and I think of a company that I've worked with is both founders. Well, that's good. Donna founded the business, but then another girl, Sarah, came into the business, and Sarah does all the graphics, the website, the tech, the wholesale. And Donna's very much the face, the product, the sourcing, you know, and they're different. Sarah's really into the detail, and Donna's more into the product, you know. So I think that there are different elements that are both needed in the business. Another brand that I've worked with before, you know, is founded by, which is Wooka, the period pant brand. That's
I love them. Yeah, I mean, game changer.
Yeah, they're amazing. And Ruby is the founder of that, but her, I don't know, the partner or husband works with her, but he's very much the tech side, the finance, the money side of it. You know, and she's very much the product and the face. Yeah. You know, and they both, you know, you need both.
Yeah. And when you start out, that's the hardest thing, because sometimes your strength might be in product, you know, knowing what works, but actually without the finances, your business can be on the floor. I mean, I learned that very quickly.
Yeah, if you're not looking at the numbers, you know.
Or you're avoiding, you know, the reality.
The numbers or the data. And, you know, there's often, when I work with clients, I say, right, okay, I want you to get all your sales for me for the last 12 months. I'm like, oh my God, I've just done that and it's painted a really crap picture. What am I doing? Is this still really worth doing what I need, you know? And
I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not, you know, because when a lot of people start a product business, like, it's all creative and it's products, like, yeah, but you need to be making this amount of margin, and how, you know, do you want to wholesale? If you want to wholesale, you need to make this amount of margin and this amount of profit. But yeah, so a lot of people can hide their head in the sand over the numbers and the data side of things. And like you say, if you're not looking at that, then it can be quite a slippery slope.
Yeah. And there's the have a go hero, isn't there, who, people are seeing now. I think since COVID, there was a boom of clothing brands that came out of that. And I think one, there's a family friend of mine who buys and sells businesses, and he works for a company that will sell your business for you. And I think it was Jim King.
Right, yeah.
He loosely went round what they sold for and when they started, and the growth was insane. And it was just as lockdown happened. And then I think he sold to JD Sports so many years after. But it was like the right timing. Everyone was stuck at home. Everyone was buying tracksuits and hoodies. And I think there was this massive boom. And with social media now, you can successfully grow a business where not using the traditional model of going into a retail and having to sell that route, which is amazing, but equally a lot of pressure now, because as a brand before, I imagine you'd be knocking on the doors of, these companies that will sell your product for you, or even having your own store.
Yeah.
And now, like we've talked, a full-time job is social media.
Yeah.
But equally, as hard as that is, it opens the door to so many other people. Like, you're seeing brands blow up that, I was watching a TikTok the other day with a girl who started a giant hairband company. So it's like this oversized hairbands. And she just went from turning over £20,000 a year to, I think, like 1.2 million in 2 years.
Yeah.
Because of the power of TikTok and social media.
Yeah.
How has that landscape changed your world?
Well, I think, it's easy. So the barrier to entry is lower now, so there are more people that are, trying businesses and growing. But in terms of how has it changed my world, it's more, I don't really.
As in, have you had to adapt your business? So traditionally what you'd advise people to do, is that now changed?
I think there's lots of different ways of things that people can now use from a tech point of view that are going to help them in their business really well. That are going to help them grow their business, that are going to take away the pain, that are going to make things easier from a customer point of view. So removing that friction, so it's really easy for a customer to buy something or to find you or whatever that may be, or to find out a product. One of those is like live shopping, which has been going on in China since 2016, but is really gaining traction over here now. And I did a podcast. I have my own podcast, Start, Scale, Succeed, and I did an episode with a live shopping company, and also did one with someone who has basically live shopping saved their business. They were going to close. They were a multi-million-pound business, and one of their income streams or avenues to their customer was kind of almost shut off overnight. And they started live shopping, and that has just saved their business, and is making, millions for them now. So, and things like using SMS marketing. And so there's brands like Only Curls, The Inky List, and you'll see if you ever subscribe to those, that the SMS marketing that they send, so the text marketing that they send, is really good, is quite frequent, it's very strong, because I think something like 75% of our purchases are now from our phone.
Yeah.
So it's like, where is your customer hanging out? They're hanging out on their phone. So how are you? So it's social media that you need to speak to them on, live shopping if you've got a brand, and you've got the other things set up in terms of email marketing and that as well. And so SMS marketing, live shopping, things like making it easier. Like on social media, it's the DM to buy. So ManyChat, that people just need to just press a button really easily and they get the link.
Yeah.
All those things. So it's the tech that's changed. And the things that are happening that are then making it easier for businesses to reach their customer.
And as buying habits changed, I now am reverting more to going and consciously shopping. I don't know if that makes sense.
Obviously, there's a sustainability side of things, and people are more conscious of what they're buying and what they're using. There's things have changed in terms of with vintage and reselling and so repurposing. So that's changed. People still want to buy though.
But they still want to buy online, or are we? Yes,
they
it's
still want to buy online. But then I think there is definitely in-person connection, or some feeling more of a community. So whether that's events you can do as if you own a brand, events you can be part of, events you can do yourself. There's an absolutely amazing concept store in Slathwaite in Huddersfield, and it's called Acorn and Pip, and Lucy is the founder there, and they have a cafe, they have the retail store, and they have online. So they catch everyone, in terms
I like
of
that.
it's a beautiful, beautiful shop. But they run a lot of events. So they'll have the Princess Breakfast, they'll have a World Book Day type thing, they'll have something at Christmas, and some are for brand awareness, some are for making sales, but they'll run a lot of events, so people still want that community side of things. And then also, it is still, there's a lot of business that you can, from online, but it's how are you bringing them in? How are you talking to them? How are you connecting with them? And, what else are you giving them other than just the product?
Because people want more. It feels, it's a stronger brand, isn't it? If it's built off the people behind it rather than, the product. They do say, don't they, if you've got a personal brand, you can pretty much sell anything to anyone. Not that that's right.
Yeah.
Because people buy into you and your story. And what always comes home to me when I'm thinking of quitting, throwing the towel in, is I'll just get an email from someone. I had one the other week. It's really personal, so I won't go into that one, but I had one last year as well, where it was a lady who said, my friend and I are going through a cancer treatment, and every Tuesday for our blood transfusions, we wear Shua Desmond's T-shirt. And when you get those emails, you're like, this is so much bigger than just a T-shirt. This is a feeling. This is everything that I wanted in a brand. This was the community. It's people behind it.
Yeah.
It's not just, I've sold this amount of money, this amount of money's coming into my bank account. And I think female owners, you probably see this more than me, and this is just my assumption, are in it for that rather than...
Yeah, I think that it's, the purpose behind what's the purpose behind the brand? What do you want it to do? How do you want it to make people feel? A lot of things. So if it's a skincare brand and it's about they might be thinking, right, okay, I want people to feel more confident. I want them to know what they're putting on their skin. I want them to make confident decisions about what they're using on their skin, and for them to feel great, and for other brands, it might be, okay, place a community, or it might just be, a really great product. But then you get those emails, like you said, that you've just got, and it's like, right, okay, I am going to keep going. This is, a great thing. I'm making them feel good by providing this product.
It means something to someone.
Yeah, it means something. And it means something to somebody else other than just me as a founder of the brand,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is fascinating. How do you see retail changing? Or do you feel like it's always going to be the same? I know things are evolving, like we've talked about social media and stuff, but what excites you for the future of your job and what you're doing?
I mean, I love working with the women that I'm working with and seeing their growth. I really do think live shopping will be really exciting, because it will, we talked about that connection and that communication with the customer. That is such an instant way to do it, that I think that will be really exciting, will help so many businesses. And I've seen the case studies from different brands of how it has helped them grow and then continue trading. So that for me is one of the really exciting, in terms of developments in retail. That side of things I think is really interesting.
It just reminds me of that. I think it's gone quite viral. There's a company in China, and I think they're counterfeit goods, but they sell... Gary Vee talks about it. I won't throw a figure out that's incorrect, but they sell a lot of product. And it's literally, I've watched the videos, this woman, a box is thrown, she opens the box. Have you seen it? She opens it out.
Okay, so when I talk about live shopping, I'm not talking about that.
Okay, right, okay. Because I was like, that was my perception of live shopping. Yeah. So just explain then a little bit more in detail of what a good live shopping would be.
Yeah, so what you were talking about is that video in China that the box comes, she just
throws it open,
out, puts it in front of the camera, and throws it back down again. It's like boom, boom, boom.
I could do this all day long.
Yeah, it's as if she's like, when you're in a supermarket and the person is scanning the product
at Aldi, and it's like
speed. Yeah, that is what she's like. Okay, so I'm not talking about that. So what I'm talking about is where the person is imagine you were in a store and you were asking a sales assistant, oh, have you got X, Y, Z? And they're literally telling you what that product does. They're demonstrating it to you. They're telling you about the features of the product. They're, showing how it could be worn.
Right.
They might be putting it on. They might be, that is live shopping. I'll give you an example of, Stephanie, who is someone who is on my podcast. She's the person that basically live shopping saved the business, a company called Highlight Craft. So it's a craft business. And they might show 8 products during an hour's live or half an hour's live, and they'll demonstrate how they work. And they'll have a chat with and they'll literally start by having a chat. They might be asking them, do they have, oh, it's breakfast. We're having bacon sandwiches. What are you having? You know what I mean? And it's very much a chat first, and then they'll go through the product and they'll demonstrate the product. And like, to give you an idea from a numbers point of view, and she won't mind me sharing because she's shared it on my own podcast. So when they first started, they did 1 live a month, and they were making £800 a month from the live. They're obviously making more now.
How long's the live?
So the live might have been 45 minutes, right?
Oh, wow. It's not bad.
No. But now they're making between $5,000 and $15,000 every live that they do. And this is not even a year later. This is 9 months later. And now they do 40 lives a week.
Holy crap.
Yeah. I'll explain. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying to people do 40 lives a week. But because they have lots of different product and they drop ship and they do all that. But I mean, you can do the math if, in terms of what they're making a week with the amount of lives that they're doing.
Is there any concern, because I've spoken to a few people, I had a lady on a couple of weeks ago whose episode will have dropped by now, who has a very good skincare company in Belfast. It's all organic, it's from beeswax. And she has a love-hate relationship with TikTok.
Yeah.
And said that she started with a TikTok shop, and then TikTok can withhold money, and it can get quite dangerous. If you put your eggs all in one basket with Live Shop, is there a worry that, you are at the helm of, if, for example, if TikTok got banned in the UK? Yeah.
So there's other platforms. So the one that this person, Stephanie, used, there's a company called Spree, which is a Dutch company, European company, but they are specifically Instagram and Facebook.
Oh, okay.
So they don't do TikTok.
Oh, right.
So you don't have to be, when I talk about live shopping, I'm not talking about just doing it on TikTok or just doing it on Facebook or just doing it.
That gets distributed to most platforms as such, or just those two?
You can put it on, it's those two, I think, at the moment. But I think it's part of an infrastructure that you would have. It's part of the blocks within your business that you would have. So I'm not saying don't do email marketing, just do live shopping. Do you know what I mean?
You got to have spread your bet.
So looking at, is SMS marketing right for you? Right, email marketing, yes, you should be absolutely doing it. Social media, you're doing it. And then if you're doing email marketing, you're showing up on social media, you've got an engaged audience, right then have a look at live shopping as well. And back to this brand, Stephanie, who started. So they have 2,000 followers on Instagram, so small. And I think they had 15,000 on Facebook at the time.
Right.
But it's really engaged. So I do think, and the cost to entry is quite low, and all you need is a phone.
Yeah.
Phone, so a tripod. If you're a brand and you're thinking, right, there's that expression, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always get. And so it's looking at, right, okay, where do you want to be as a business? And how are you going to get that uplift from a financial point of view if you're not opening any more doors in wholesale, or you're not going to open up your own bricks and mortar? What are the things that you're going to do that you can do to move the needle? And that's, what are the things within your power to do? And I don't think, I know you're talking about if TikTok shop closed or whatever. There's looking at different avenues, and it's not having all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, and I think that as soon as you grab someone's email address, that's the most powerful thing, isn't it? Because then you can reach back out to those people for free, ultimately. It's incredible. What from your personal perspective, what's next for you? Like, you've took this massive jump to chase your dream job of, being able to work with lots of different people and help lots of different people. What's the next step?
At the moment, you can work mostly one-to-one with me. So I am looking at creating more workshops, doing more courses, potentially a membership group, with over the next 12 to 18 months that they'll start to come. Hopefully more will be this end, it's half of the year, some will be towards the other half of the year. I'm doing a project with the government at the end of the year that's going to last for quite a while. So they're the things that are on the horizon for me at the moment.
And would you have any words of wisdom for any women out there that are kind of following your footsteps of wanting to leave a corporate world?
Life is short, it really is. And, if you're not happy with what you're doing, or if you have a dream to do something else, start it on the side. What's the worst that can happen? And you can always go back to doing what you did if you need to, but I think that if you don't pursue what you want, I think you'd kick yourself, and you just live with that regret of, I could have done this. And I'm sure there's people that are listening, they're going, I've wanted to do this, they're thinking, I've wanted to do this for years, and now so-and-so is doing something, and so-and-so is doing something, and so-and-so is doing something. Do you still want to be in that position in 12 months' time, 18 months' time, seeing more people doing what you're now not doing? I think just life is short. You've just got to make the decision and take the action.
Yeah, I just did a bonus episode on that, just reflecting on a previous podcast, and I talked about, I'm a big lover of Brené Brown, and she talks about you've got to get in the arena. You can be a bystander, and you can judge, and you can see what the people are doing, and it's not fun. If once you get in an arena, it's scrappy, it's messy, there's failure, but you're in it. And I think it's really hard sometimes. Lots of women that I speak to, friends in particular, who want to make the jump, and they're like, I can't. It's like you cannot. You just got to.
Yeah, and it's not easy. It is not easy.
No.
And people might think, I want to start my own business and I'll have better work-life balance. You won't, because you'll be working more hours on your own business than you did in your 9 to 5, and at the start you'll be getting less money.
Yeah, and I woke last night worried about the show this week at 2:00, thinking about stands and hangers.
Yeah, and
that's life.
You'll get over one shitstorm,
and there'll be another one.
And there'll be another one. Know? But it's your shitstorm.
Yeah.
It's your thing to manage to sort out. Rather than having to answer to somebody else. Or, you know what I mean? I think if you've got the dream to do something, you owe it to yourself, I say, to get in the arena and do it. Yeah. Stop talking about
it. I had the Marshmallowists on. Yes. They'd literally just a stone throw away down there. And Una said, does it get easier the bigger you get? And she was like, no, the problems just get bigger and the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
I think she talked about when she went from Portobello Market and then started selling into Fortnum and Masons and Harrods, and it's like it really does heighten the stakes when you're spending, I think, £35,000 on new packaging that you're not sure is going to even work. And you're having to buy stock in on those large volumes. But it's also empowering. Are you finding that a lot of women on their journey, can you see the confidence grow?
Yeah, and I keep in touch with a lot of people that I've worked with, and I'll send them the text, how's so-and-so, how's this going, how's that going? And she's like, now that's working, and I'm needing to tackle that. And like I said, a lot of things are, you can do a hard thing. Mm-hmm. And I think once you do more of those hard things, you're like, your confidence grows. You're like, actually, I got over that. I got over that problem and that hurdle. So, I think you can see their confidence growing because they've tackled the smaller issues and that they became bigger issues,
Yeah. It's a process, isn't it? Well, listen, I think what you're doing is amazing. It's invaluable, the experience that you have, and that now you're able to give that back to other women is incredible. Where can people find you on socials?
So you can find me on socials as the Buyer and Retail Coach. Uh-huh. And that is essentially where you can find me everywhere. So I'm not really on TikTok. Instagram is where I hang out. You might find me the odd time on LinkedIn, and also my own podcast, which is called Start, Scale, Succeed, where I interview experts and entrepreneurs that have either started or grown their own product business, and the experts are those kind of people, like say in marketing or in raising investment and those kind of things to help you within your own product business. So Instagram, the Buyer and Retail Coach, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you very much.